Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast.
I'm Jesse Lubinsky.
I'm Donnie Piercy.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Heil, hosts of the Partial Credit Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others.
Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey music teacher friend, I want to let you know about a free guide called 5 Steps to Simplifying Your Lesson Planning. We know as an elementary music teacher how stressful it can be planning lessons every single week for all the grade levels you teach that need to meet the state or national standards, that will reach different learning styles, and that are also fun and engaging for your students. If you've had thoughts like, am I doing this whole lesson planning thing right? Then check out this guide. It will help you with lesson planning with ease. So simply head to subscribe.thedomesticmusician.com/simplifying lesson planning, or check out the link in the show notes. Hello, amazing music educator. I'm so excited to have you back for another episode of the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. And today's episode is how to effectively plan with other music teachers. There is a blog post in the show notes that goes right along with this episode, or just head to thedomesticmusician.com and look at the latest blog post, or you can search for it in the search bar. This episode was born from a conversation I had with a music teacher a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how at your elementary school, there are grade level teams. They sit down, and maybe not every team, but most of the time they will sit down together at least once a week to hash out their lessons, talk about what concepts they're teaching in the different subject areas they teach, and they will kind of help each other just plan for the week. And she said it would be really nice to be able to collaborate with other music teachers like that, like if we had a team of them at my school. And I said, it doesn't mean just because you're the only music teacher at your school that you cannot collaborate with other music teachers. And so that's what I want to share today, is how to do that. Some of these ideas you already know. Some of these things that I'm going to mention you may already be doing. And some of these you'll be like, oh, maybe I am already collaborating, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So my goal is for you to realize, first of all, how important collaboration is. And also, I'm going to talk about the different personality types where everybody's not an extrovert. I've said this on this podcast before, but people think I am an extrovert just because I'm a podcaster and because I talk a lot in my online business and things like that. But I'm not. I'm actually an introvert. Doesn't mean I don't love to talk. It doesn't mean that I don't love hanging out with people and inspiring music teachers. It just means during my free time, I'd rather be by myself. So I'm kind of a recluse in that way. But anyways, all that to say, it doesn't matter what your personality type is, whether you're introverted or extroverted, there are still ways to collaborate, both in person and online. And I want to share those today. So I want you to think about when you sit down to lesson plan, whether it's during a plan time, whether you like to plan at the beginning of the day before school starts, or you're a lesson planner in the afternoon. I know for me, my brain is more awake in the morning. So I remember being in the classroom and my plan time was one of the last class periods of the day. And by then my brain was just like, I can't focus on this. So I would like a lot of times like to, even those 30 minutes before I got my first class, a lot of times teacher contract hours, it depends on where you are, but mine was get there 30 minutes before the students before the bell rang. And so I would use that time to do most of my planning because I felt like I was able to focus on my work better freshly, like fresh in the start of the day. And so whatever that looks like for you, doesn't matter when you sit down to plan, but when you do, I want you to think about what that looks like. What are the steps you take to lesson plan? And that will inform some of the decision making when it comes to collaborating with other teachers. So, the first thing I want to talk about before we get into that is identifying who's in your network. What does this mean? What do you mean? Like, we're not talking about a computer network. And oh my gosh, just finished my master's in educational technology, and I don't want to hear the word network for a while in that aspect. But anyways, when I talk about your network, your sphere, your circle, your who are you communicating with, or who is near you in proximity? This is what I mean. Who's in your network? So let's start with your actual school building. Are you the only music teacher, or are there more than one music teacher at your school? When I did my student teaching placement back in the dinosaur ages, I'm not going to tell you what year that was, but anyways, my cooperating teacher taught 3rd and 4th grade music. There was also a kindergarten music teacher, and there was also a 3rd and 4th grade. Nope, she taught 3rd and 4th grade. Excuse me. There was also a 1st and 2nd grade music teacher. This school did not go through 5th, it went through 4th grade. I realize how rare that is. It's very rare to have different music teachers at your school teaching just a few grade or a couple different grade levels. The reason this school did this is because it was very, very large. It was probably one of the largest schools in the area that I taught in, that I lived in at the time. And I think this was the only way they could make it work. Like, there was a lot of 3rd and 4th grade classes. And I realized that this is very rare. But what I did get to experience firsthand is the collaboration that took place mostly between her and the 1st and 2nd grade music teacher. It was really neat to kind of sit in these different meetings and to see the way they would shoot emails back and forth. And I got a firsthand look behind the scenes of what that looked like. So my brain cells started turning when I got my first music teaching job, where I was the only one in the school building. And I thought, how can I collaborate with other music teachers if I'm the only one in my building? So I started with this, identifying who was in my network. I started with looking at what schools were near me. And I thought, have I met the music teacher at that school at maybe one of our district workshops? Or do I even know who that is? And then I would kind of start, like, kind of creepy, but I would look up their email addresses. And there was 2 teachers I can remember that I shot an email to. One never responded, which we're going to get into that. That happens a lot. And the other one, I just said, hey, I'm introducing myself. I'm new to this school. It's right down the road from you. I would love to collaborate from time to time and share ideas if you're up and open for that. She was so excited about it. Now, we didn't collaborate as much as I would like to, but we did start a relationship where could ask her questions, or she could ask me questions, and we would share song ideas and lesson plans and what concepts we're working on and all those things. So that's where I started, was networking with who was near me in proximity. Another way that you could collaborate with who's in your network is trade off with collaborating with 1 or 2 teachers from neighboring schools once a week. So when you identify those teachers, collaborate with them once or twice a week. This does not mean you need to always meet in person. I already gave the example that I, emailed a couple times. You don't have to make it formal. You could even text. You could message back and forth, whatever messenger app you want to use. It does not matter how you do it, but once a week is usually plenty enough. And maybe that's overwhelming to you. Then try once every 2 weeks. I want you to identify no more than 3 to 5 teachers you would love to not only learn from, but also to share your ideas with as well. I say no more than 3 to 5 because then when you're collaborating, it gets a little overwhelming trying to keep up with everybody. I would say try to actually keep it at 1 through 3, if I can be honest, because even though you're going to get a million ideas from other teachers, if you collaborate with a lot of them, it'll get overwhelming, especially if you're doing the type of collaboration where you're trying to set up meetings or you're trying to meet virtually and trying to message back and forth. In your district, what elementary music teachers do you think you would work well together with? Maybe like me, when I emailed that teacher I told you about, you're new to your district. Maybe at the time of this recording, you're halfway through your first year teaching, or you moved to a new school or district from your previous school or district. So you're like, I don't really know who I could collaborate with. I also do realize we are still slowly crawling out of that COVID hole where you did not do a lot of in-person collaborating with teachers for very long. So maybe you're just kind of picking back up while meeting new music teachers that you maybe never knew before. Maybe you could do what I did. Start by emailing. Go to the next district in service you have and kind of, I know you're not going to really know their teaching style very well because you're sitting there in a professional development setting, but who do you click with? Who have you had a conversation with that you could carry that on into collaboration? Who do you know would be willing to collaborate? There's those teachers that are the ones sitting in the back of the room at PD who just kind of are there just because they have to be. And the ones that are really engaged and excited to learn like you are. So just try to maybe just jot a couple names down and you never know what'll happen. So you're identifying who's in your network. I also want you to think about who's in your online network. This is the next thing I want you to consider because I do realize with your busy schedule, it is hard to collaborate in person a lot. The last thing you want to do sometimes is set up yet another meeting. I totally understand. So maybe your cup of tea is more online. Who's in your online network? My online network when I taught, there wasn't a lot of online opportunities. Yes, back to the dinosaur ages comment. But I have set up an online network with my Harmony membership. That's the whole reason I created it, is for music teachers to be able to collaborate with one another. And who do you naturally have conversations with or shared interests with on social media or in maybe some Facebook groups, or maybe you hang out on Twitter? Start thinking about those people you have gotten to know online, where maybe instead of just leaving comments like, oh, that's a great idea, or you read their post, you are more engaged with it now. And you're like, okay, everything this person shares is kind of similar to what I do or what I would like to do in my music room. So I'm going to reach out and just say, hey, do you want a friend or do you want to collaborate with me? So just ask them. You never know what's going to happen. The next thing I wanted to discuss is decide how you want to plan. Now, I mentioned earlier, when you think about how you sit down to plan music, let's talk about those steps. Let's break them down. What do you do when you sit down to plan your lesson plans for music each week is what I meant. You probably have your scope and sequence and or curriculum map in front of you or pulled up on a computer screen, however you do it. Then you maybe decide what concepts you're teaching to your students that week. Where are you wanting them to go? You're looking at data and assessment and trying to decide, are you on track with what the curriculum map says, or do you need to backtrack a little and things like that? The next thing you do is you start looking at songs and activities and decide what would make sense when it comes to teaching towards those concepts and standards. So how can you do all this in a collaborative way? I mentioned earlier that we all have different personalities. Some are introverted, some are extroverted. I like to plan by myself. I like to work by myself. I do better that way. I have headphones in a lot. If you've come to any of my trainings or Facebook Lives, actually the headphones are in for multiple reasons. One is because I like to block out all the distractions, i.e. I have 3 loud boys. And the other reason is I want to work by myself and just be able to focus. And when I have my headphones in, I'm listening to music, maybe very calming, because I get distracted if it has words and I start forgetting what I'm doing, squirrel syndrome. But maybe you're like me and you like to work by yourself. You like to plan by yourself. You just work better that way. Or maybe you're extroverted and you love to talk to other teachers. You love to plan with others. That is like your dream, is to not just sit and plan by yourself. We all need all the different personalities. Everyone, it would be so boring if we were all the same and the world was just introverts or just extroverts, or what's the one? Is it called ambivert? I'm probably saying that completely wrong, but the one that's a mixture. We all need each other. Every personality is needed. So deciding how to collaborate with others, though, um, don't let your personality hold you back from being able to do that because you totally can. But that goes back to deciding, how do you want to plan? If you're an introvert, maybe you don't want to plan once a week with someone else. Maybe you're more like once a month. So decide what works for you and then kind of start making a plan around that. Let's talk about some strategies in order to decide how you want to plan. After you have thought about your lesson planning process and you know when in the day you like to do that, and you know what you have put in front of you when you're planning. I know I always have like 100 notebooks in front of me and 76,000 tabs open. That's just my personality too. But when you're planning by yourself, ways to collaborate with others is you could email song ideas back and forth, or you could meet once a week to discuss what concepts you're teaching, and then go back on your own time to find songs and lessons based around what you discussed with that teacher, or take some of the ideas they shared and plug it into your plans as well. Or you could even jump on a Zoom call with a few music educators if they're in other states, or even if they're neighboring districts or neighboring school. If Zoom is easier, do that, and you can discuss ideas that way. How you choose to plan with others is completely up to you. Decide what you need and go from there. The next thing we're going to discuss is be open to sharing and learning new ideas. I am thinking back to staff meetings. We know what I'm talking about. We always have those oversharers, not just music teachers. I'm talking about any teacher. The teacher who wants to share everything. And usually, of course, it's whenever the staff meeting is ready to wrap up. And it's that, does anybody have any more questions? Which could have been an email, and he never fails. Everybody knows that teacher that's about to raise their hand. Yes. So there's oversharers. Okay. But we all know those teachers that share too much. But we also know those teachers who don't share very much. But when they do, it's going to be great. Whatever is about to come out of their mouth is going to be some epic bombshell piece of advice that you were just so excited about because they don't share much, but when they do, man, there's some wisdom there. So there's both personalities. Going back to introvert, extrovert, that ties right into oversharers and undersharers. Which one do you identify with? I feel like I'm a little of both. It depends on the setting I'm in, but sometimes I share probably too much where I'm leaving a conversation going, oh gosh, I like kind of opened a can of worms with that one and wouldn't shut up. And other times I'm like, I really wish I had said this. I really wish I told this person that. And so maybe that's you, is it depends on the situation, and that's okay too. Neither of these teacher types is wrong. The education system, like I mentioned earlier, needs both types of personalities. But I want you to not think, if you're listening to this and you're a newish teacher, you're in years 1 through 3, or you think, well, I'm still kind of figuring things out. We all are. We're all figuring things out. It doesn't matter if you're first year teacher, 30-year teacher. Don't think that you have nothing to share. Don't let the fear of, I don't think I lesson plan good enough, or I always run out of time, or I don't plan enough, or I have no idea if I'm teaching the right songs, or I don't know if I'm teaching concepts in the right order. Don't let those doubts and fear creep in of you're not good enough hold you back from sharing. Because here's the thing. Every single music educator has ideas that no one else has thought about before. I am so excited when I hear a music teacher share an idea, and they start off with kind of like I started out this episode of, oh, a lot of you have probably already tried this, or I'm going to share this, but it's probably not new to you, or you all probably teach this song, but I wanted to share it anyways. And literally maybe 90% of the people listening to this conversation or seeing this post is going, actually, I've never done that before. Either the song's brand new or you're teaching it in a way where I've never thought about it before. That happens to me all the time. I mentioned my Harmony membership. Well, I have lesson plans in there. And I had a teacher email me a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, or somewhere in there. She said there was this song in there that she had taught before, but I had presented it in procedures in the lesson plan in a totally different way she had never thought about before. So it wasn't brand new to her. It just was, oh my gosh, that idea you shared here was new to me. Or I'm so excited because maybe you got burnt out from teaching the same songs over and over. You know what I mean? But you find some new idea that you're excited to implement that maybe just changing it up is what you need to put a fresh perspective on it. So don't be afraid to share ideas. You never know who needs that idea you have. And when you start collaborating with other teachers, you're going to sometimes give them so much excitement because it's the idea they have been needing. So don't be afraid to share. Your ideas are needed, and collaborating with others is what's needed as well. The last thing we're going to talk about is collaborating in other ways. We have talked about the Captain Obvious steps of collaborating in person or online and how to figure that out, what to do. But I want to also talk about ways you're probably already collaborating that you maybe didn't think about, or how you can move forward in collaborating in some unique ways that you maybe haven't thought about before as well. When you're considering how to effectively plan with other music teachers, the main way is obviously to meet up, whether that is in person or online. But I want you to think about the last time you were scrolling on Instagram and you stopped. And maybe you're not an Instagram person. So think about if you're on Facebook, whether it's a Facebook page from a music teacher or a Facebook group, and you've seen some post that you just stop because you're like, oh my gosh, that idea was amazing. And you stop to read it. Well, what do you do after you read that post? Maybe you like it. Maybe you share it. Maybe you save it. Maybe you leave a simple comment like that was great. But how many times have you seen a post like that and then you thought about sharing a similar post because you're like, okay, that was a great idea, but I did something similar like that in my class. And then the idea just kind of leaves your head and you never do anything with it. Well, what would happen if you commented on this person's post and you shared something else you do to that certain song or activity they shared? You said, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea. I wanted to also share that I do this as well with it. Other people are not only seeing that post, they're seeing your comment. The author of the post is seeing your comment. They may comment back, and then you comment back, and it ends up being this back and forth conversation, all because you decided to share an idea as well. So maybe not just in the comments, but don't be afraid to share a post. Maybe social media is totally not your jam. I get it. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you guys because I consider you my friend virtually, but social media has been getting on my nerves lately. Okay. I have not been posting on Instagram as much as I used to. I am sick and tired of creating reels. I know you're probably tired of seeing reels. I'm tired of trying to figure out new content to share, and it's just gotten kind of redundant to me. And maybe you feel that way, but you don't need to be on social media all the time. But one thing that I do love about it is the wealth of knowledge and the sharing that is happening with teachers every single day, where maybe they're not even on there consuming much, but they just hop on there every once in a while because they have an idea to share. You do too. You have an idea to share. I don't care where on social media you hang out, but maybe if social media is not your cup of tea, your idea to share is to the other music teachers in your district through an email. Maybe you have other ways you're collaborating with them that you could share with them as well. So think about that. When's the last time you shared an idea? And when we talked about you commenting on someone else's post, if you are sharing to social media, you will have someone comment on your post, and this natural relationship will start forming where you think, oh, Jessica talked about finding who I could collaborate with online. That might be your person that you could start collaborating with and setting up weekly chats. You never know. You never know how these relationships are going to blossom. So this is a fantastic way to collaborate and not to mention get to know other music educators. I want you to share as much as you consume. Okay, I know probably if you're like me, sometimes you scroll. Other days I'm not on social media at all. I'm not on social media at all. My gosh, that was a hard phrase to say. But I want you to not just consume content, share it. If you read an epic post and you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, say, you know what? I also need to share, because just like you tell those students of yours, especially those little kindergartners, sharing is caring. You have so much wisdom, knowledge, ideas to share with others. So do it. Just be courageous, put yourself out there, and look how many collaboration opportunities come from you just taking that step. Also, when you're on social media land and you get stuck into the vortex, I want you to look at those asking questions. There's so many teachers needing advice and mentorship and help. And you may say, who am I to answer that? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be giving them the right answer. But you never know if your answer is that light bulb moment that music educator needed because you shared some awesome advice with them. So look for those asking questions as well. Shoot a direct message to a music teacher who's struggling in a certain area. Let them know you're just there for them without expecting anything in return. And you notice how many collaboration opportunities come from that as well. So I hope that you got something from this episode. Maybe you've been thinking about collaborating with other music teachers because we all know, and I know this is said a million places, but you are on a music teacher island most of the time. In fact, most of the time, I know, and this is most schools I've been in, the music classroom is already, it feels like it's on an island. It's like on the other end of the school. It is usually somewhere you have to walk far to get to. And so if you're having a hard time and you're feeling like lonely and you're just feeling like I need other music educators to talk to, choose one of these ideas. Go back and listen to this episode as many times as you need to. Share it with a friend who needs to hear this. And also remember, there's a blog post you can read as well and save it and go back to it over and over and over. Have an amazing week. I can't wait to be back on here next week with a brand new guest episode. Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook Group. Come on over and join us there where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.